This lesson is all about modal verbs, and just as a warning, it will be a slightly longer lesson. So modal auxiliary verbs, to give them their full title, are usually simplified to either modal verbs or sometimes even just modals. And they're used to modify the main verb by expressing modality. Some examples of what we mean by modality are ability, advice, desires, intent, likelihood, obligation, offers, permission, possibility, requests, suggestions, or willingness. Again, not an exhaustive list. But the modal verbs, or the full modal verbs, these are the complete list, and it's can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would. And these modal verbs cannot be used in an infinitive form, so we would never say to could or to must or to shall. They're not used that way. Negative sentences are formed just by adding not after the verb. And the good news is that questions can be formed by simple inversion of subject and verb. So we form negative sentences with modal verbs by adding not after the verb. So Mary can swim. Peter can't swim, where can't is the short form of cannot. And please note, cannot here is one word. John will help with the housework. Paul won't help with the housework. A won't is a short form of will not. I might be late home this evening. Or putting it another way round, I might not be on time this evening. And we can form questions with modal verbs by simple inversion. Again, by inversion, we just swap subject and verb. So Bob can swim, or as a question, can Bob swim? You should brush your teeth at least twice a day. And this is the answer to the question, how often should I brush my teeth? Or I will help you with your homework. Or the question, will you help me with my homework? So we use can to express or question an ability. Most modern smartphones can connect to the internet. Can you swim a length of the pool yet? I can't run very fast. We also use could to indicate or question a past ability. When I was younger, I could eat whatever I wanted and stay slim. Jim couldn't read until he was 10 years old. And couldn't is could and not together. Could you still keep in touch without social media? This is probably a question a young child or might ask her grandmother what it was like before the days of social media. Then we look at some advice examples. We use should to give advice and also to ask for advice. You should brush your teeth at least twice a day. Should I tell my boss about the missing money? That's asking someone for advice about what to do. We use would to politely offer advice about something. I would apologize to her if I were you. He's really suggesting you should apologize, but he's phrasing it in a polite way. I think it would be wise to think about your pension now. Again, it's wrapping it in a slightly more polite form but it's saying to the person, you really should think about your pension now. And we use shall to politely ask for advice about a future decision. As in, where shall we begin? Or who shall I invite to the party? If we look at desires, we use would to express or ask about desires. What would you like to do on our anniversary? I would love to go to that new restaurant. And while they're there, I would like my steak medium rare, please. And we use may to express wishes and future wishes in a formal way. May our success continue in the year ahead. May you both have a happy and healthy life together. Or lastly, may the force be with you. And please notice when we use may like this, we sort of invert it, although it's not a question. It's used sort of rhetorically and when you're giving speeches and making bold statements. But the fact that it's inverted doesn't make it a question. Now, if we look at intent, we use must to make intent stronger. I must get my car repaired this week. I must remember my wife's birthday. I must make an appointment with the accountant. So in all of these examples, I have an intent to do something. By saying I must do what I wanted to do, it kind of strengthens the intent. Now we have likelihood. So we use will to express the likelihood of something in the immediate present. So for example, the doorbell rings. Ding dong. Oh, that will be Jim. He said he would pop around today. Now, it might not be Jim, but you think it probably is. Who is that in the car? Oh, that would be Peter's new girlfriend picking him up from work. And we use would to express the likelihood of something in the immediate past. Your shoes have been chewed up again. Oh, that would be our dog. Sorry about that. It might not be the dog, but they think it probably is. You answered the door and there was no one there. No, that would be the neighbour's kids. Ringing the bell and running away. Or you should to express a likely or expected outcome. The result should be back in a week. We expect them to be back by then. This book should be interesting. So you expect it to be interesting. Maybe you've heard about it or read other books by the author. So we use can to describe likely situations and occurrences. You can be sure that this is probably a bad idea. You can safely place a bet on that horse. Worst advice ever. And we use could to indicate a possibility or a likelihood. This could cause you a lot of problems. It looks like it could start raining at any time. And we use might to indicate a weak possibility. Take an umbrella. It might rain. Probably won't, and it might. If we don't leave now, we might not arrive on time. Again, I think we'll be on time, but we better make sure. And we use must to indicate a strong likelihood. I must have left my keys at home. At least I hope I did. I haven't lost them on the way. You must be exhausted after running that race. If we look at obligation, we use must to indicate obligation. So the fire door must be closed at all times. You must not tell anyone about this. Okay? Forbidden. And we use should to express polite obligation. I think you should pay for half the damages. Why should she have to pay for her brother? In both cases, they're expressing an obligation or questioning an obligation, but in a polite way. We also use shall to indicate obligation in formal situations or especially in legal documents. So the supplier shall not be held liable for damages if the product has been used incorrectly. The customer shall supply all necessary hardware. Now, these are typical sentences you will see in contracts, but they're really expressing the liability for each party or the lack of liability in the first case. And in normal everyday speech, you don't usually see shall being used, but you do see it a lot in legal documents and contracts. So we use for offers can and could to make an offer to do something for someone. So say, can I help you with the gardening, or could I help you with the gardening? Can I give you a lift back to your flat, or could I give you a lift back to your flat? Now, can and could are similar. Can is slightly more direct and could is slightly more indirect, but they both have a similar meaning. That's why we put them both together. And we use will to make polite offers. Will you have a cup of coffee? Or will your friend be joining us for dinner? If you are being less polite, you'll say, is your friend going to be joining us for dinner? But because we're all polite here, we use this construction, will your friend be joining us for dinner? We use may to make polite offers. May I be of assistance? May I help you with your bags? We also use shall to make polite offers. Shall I mow the lawn? Shall I get you anything while I'm in town? And again, all very polite ways of asking if you can help somebody. When we think about permissions, we use can for permissions, especially in questions. Or in this case, a lack of permission. You can't have any ice cream until you've finished your meal. Can I leave early today? And we use could to ask for permission to do something. And could is a little bit more polite than can. Could I take next week off, please? Do you think you could approve the project budget? Now, if we're being more polite, we use may to ask for something and to formally deny permission as well. May I borrow your black tie, please? Students may not leave the hall during the exam. And we use might to add a little bit of extra politeness. I wonder if I might bring a friend to the party, which is the polite way of saying, can I bring a friend to the party? But we wrap it up in this way to make it more polite and more indirect. Might I be excused from the table, please? Very, very polite and slightly old-fashioned way of asking if they can leave the table. When we think of possibilities, we use can to describe possible actions. You can ask the librarian for a book recommendation. People can easily lose track of time when accessing social media on their phone. Now here we're looking at can not as an ability. It's not like you have the ability to ask for the librarian, like you have a mouth and a tongue and you can speak the language. That's not meant here. but you can ask her, you have the possibility to ask her for help. We use may and might to express uncertain possibility, that we may or might run into problems if we don't think ahead. I'm worried that it may start snowing soon, or I'm worried that it might start snowing soon. And may and might, they're sort of similar in this case. May is perhaps a little bit more polite and formal, and might is probably what people will use in everyday speech. We also use might to suggest a possibility to another person. I thought you might like this band, so I bought you their latest CD. I was wondering if you might like to see a film with me. And when making requests, we use can to make a direct request. Can you turn the music down? I can't reach that. Can you get it for me? Now, in this sentence, the first can't hasn't been put in italics because that's not the one we mean. The first can't is an ability type usage. But I'm too short, it's up too high, I can't reach it. But can you get it for me is a way of requesting the help. And we use could, would, and will to make polite requests. So, could you help me with my homework? Or would you help me? Or will you help me? Are all polite ways of asking. As is could, would, or will you put your dog on its lead, please? So for suggestions, we use shall to politely ask for suggestions. Shall we invite your parents over for dinner? And of course that song, what shall we do with the drunken sailor? Don't worry, I won't sing, I'll spare you that pain. And we use would to ask for somebody's opinion or suggestion. What would you suggest we do tomorrow? Where would be a good place for a camping holiday? And we use should to give or ask for recommendations. What should I see when I visit London next month? We should go and see the new film. I'm sure you will like it. And we use could to suggest an option. We could all go for a drink after work. Very civilized idea. I'm not sure if your boss will agree to this, but you could try. And we use might to make polite suggestions. You might want to have that checked by your doctor. So obviously a friend has seen something, is worried by it, and is suggesting it's a good idea to go and see a doctor. But he's wrapped it up in a polite way. You might try rebooting the computer and see if that helps, which is again a polite way of saying restart the computer and see if it helps. And we use must to emphasize suggestions. Or you must come and spend the weekend with us. You must try that new restaurant in town. So you're making a suggestion to try the new restaurant, but you're using must to really emphasize it. And we use will to indicate an immediate willingness or unwillingness. If you cook the meal, I'll wash the dishes. And I'll is the short version of I will. Emma won't come out of the bathroom. And here won't is the concatenation of will not. So she's unwilling to come out of the bathroom. And we use would in a similar way, but for things in the past. Paul wouldn't come out of his room all day. The car wouldn't start this morning. So annoying.